Hey, you're listening to another episode of Your Worst Song. I am your host, Alex Southey, and I got to do this one quickly for reasons just that can be known to me. But we've got Wax Mannequin, or as I briefly called him in the interview, Max Wannekin. They make indie rock. It's fairly unique live style of performance. In 2004, 20 years ago, but we get into how long Chris's or Wax's career has been. 20 years ago, the Globe and Mail said this about him and his live performances. Crowds are often baffled whether to be awed, irritated, or amused by Wax's all rockets flaring, un-Canadian-like, extravagant performances. I didn't actually get the chance to ask him this, but I wanted to ask, well, how would he know anyway? It's somebody else wrote it about him, but un-Canadian, what do you think that means? Maybe keep that in mind when you're listening to the interview. I mean, I don't know if he reveals anything particularly un-Canadian. What I imagine that writer meant was in your face. It's not very polite necessarily. It doesn't mean he's mean, but it's not exactly a polite live performance. It's lots of energy, sort of bordering on punk. At one point, he describes his music as brutalist, which I thought was great. We got into a little thing about that. Anyway, hope you enjoy this episode. I'm Alex Southey. This is Wax Mannequin, and also, this is Your Worst Song. Thanks.
Today I worked. I'm a teacher too, so I taught grade 7, and we made what did we do? Some math, some maps. Nothing super interesting today, but we had fun. Cleaning classroom, giving out points. I give out bucks for and we're doing like financial literacy with this class money and stuff. Anyways, I don't want to talk about that.
Sure.
Yeah, so I had a show on the weekend though. That was fun. I played at Vertigogo, and it went well.
Okay, great. Tell me a bit more about that. The name doesn't
Yeah,
ring a bell.
it's a good club in Hamilton. Sad, I mean, you know how things go. We get lose some, we get some, and
Yes.
uh, we lost this Hollywood just during the pandemic, but not because of the pandemic. It had a good heroic run. That venue, the St. Hollywood, lost a few years ago, but Lou Molinaro is still booking, putting on great shows in town. And we're on the verge of losing the Casbah, which is pretty tragic. But similarly, I think Brody's keen to. So we're going to have a big send off all through January, lots of neat shows. And
Okay,
I
very
think
cool.
he's going to keep booking, hopefully. I mean, I'm not speaking for him, but I think he expressed an interest in trying to still organize shows. So I'm optimistic that his world will keep rolling. And Vertigogo, though, getting back to this, is an old pub in town. It used to be called the Gladstone.
Mm-hmm.
It's been around since the 70s or something. Not really renovated at all since the 80s, and it's really like an 80s dive bar, but big and pool tables and everything. But it's been taken over by this punk rock scene. Jen, this awesome booker, runs the place and books the place. So a lot of punk rock and metal, but really they book everything. So it's good for me because I kind of am everything, and we just put on a fun show there on Saturday night with the Beef Boys from Peterborough and Day Drunk, and a new band called the Clarkies from
Oh,
Hamilton.
okay.
Young folks, kind of proggy indie weird stuff that I just adored. So good times. I've had a few good shows there, and so things are happening in Hamilton still.
That's what it seems like. I've talked to a few people from artists from Hamilton, and it seems like whether or not the scene feels big or small, they feel like it's thriving, if that
Yeah,
makes sense.
there's always corners of thriving, and certain days it's thriving, and then other days hard to draw people. But and good stuff going on. Into the Abyss is putting on shows. That's a record shop there
Yeah,
in town. Still have Dr. Disc going strong, selling vinyl too, and the radio stations we have. So we're pretty lucky. Got
definitely.
it.
And you've probably seen a lot of change. You started out in Hamilton as well. Is that right?
Yeah, yes, I did. Well, I mentioned Brody in the Casby. He started booking a place called the Raven in the early 2000s and just started throwing me on the bills, opening up for all kinds of bizarre traveling musicians and bands from around North America, around the world, really, because you got lots of international acts in this little place. And so I just got a taste for thinking like it just a bigger perspective. I thought I could probably do this and travel and make music and so I did and still do. But good 10 years or so, that's all I was doing. And now it's something I do in the summers and every opportunity. So every month I'm gigging weekends often and every summers and
Oh,
when I carve out space, I do the wider view
I'd
travel,
love to.
put out a record. The Red Brain came out a year and a half ago almost, and still feels like it has legs in my mind in the sense that I don't hate playing the songs yet. So that's a win.
That's always a good test. Be like, okay, I'm not sick of sitting with these characters, so to speak, yet.
Exactly.
You know, can you
Yeah.
feel that creeping in with some of your other? I mean, obvious. It's almost like dust that comes over your music, or it's almost like yeah, something's on it, and you just go, I don't think of you the same way anymore.
Yeah, it's funny that it's a bit like relationships or something. You have to foster that love
Yes.
for it, keep working it. So some of my but it's funny, and you give it some perspective, and uh, some of my older tunes come back into focus, and I think, yeah, that made sense. That's still a good song, right? And so I like bringing the old ones out that I feel are still relevant or feel hold up. And you don't always know. It's like you do something. I've been doing this for 20 years, 25 years now, if not more.
Hmm.
And certain ones just I can stand, which is neat. I mean, it sounds like pessimistic, but in a
No,
way,
no, no.
it's a choosy kind of a choosy kind of. I like being choosy, and there's certain ones that I think still shine, and I think time lets them shine even more if they can last. If I'm not sick of them after 20 some odd years, they must be worth something. So I try to find those and bring them out and even re-record them or just put them in the set and try them on for current size. But
No, I love that. And it sounds like obviously a lot of how you decide that is internal, but do you let your audience kind of dictate somewhat? Like, you know what? It seems like this song is still, I've gone in and out of connecting with it, but consistently it's connected with my audience. So why not keep it?
yeah, I do that. I mean, there's certain songs that people ask for that are not my favorite, but I recognize they've got a place
Hmm.
in somebody's heart or mind. And so I want to honor that and polish them up and put them out there.
What does polishing up look like to you? And I'm sure it's a case by case basis, but does that mean changing the instrumentation? Could it be as drastic as changing the time signature, for example?
Oh, yeah, at times. I mean, mostly just I tighten up the lyrics quite a bit
Hmm.
over the years. I'll just change just turns of phrase here or there, just little things. But I try to minimize like I try to how do I put this? Like change things minimally, but for maximal effect. Like sometimes I just think of, oh yeah, if I just flip those two words around, or just a turn of phrase will come to me after decades or many years, and I think that's the way the song should have been written, and so sing it that way from now on and not tell anyone. Maybe re-record it eventually, but um, yeah, I think that's fun to do. Is that related to your question?
I would say it's related in general, at least to the podcast. It's actually something you sort of answered something I asked near the end, which is, uh, and maybe you can hint at this, but we won't get there yet. Something I suggest to people who talk about their worst song, air quote, is would you ever try and revive it if you're not playing it right now? But it sounds like, in a larger sense, you all the time regularly find an old song and go, yeah, I can spruce this up in a way that makes sense to me now.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, in a way, I have an album that I think is my worst and best album. Um, and I try to draw from it now and then. I have a pipe dream, a fantasy that I'll sometime re-record this album, and Orchard and Ire. It's like a love-hate relationship I have with that album. It was so
Uh-huh.
some people just really like it, and I think it's so horribly flawed. But then other days I'll like occasionally, I don't listen to it frequently, but if I or on my own music generally, but if I put it on in the right light, it makes sense to me. I was going for a thing. Like when when you're recording, you're always going for a thing and you
Yeah,
never quite get it, but sometimes you get pretty close. Sometimes you get something
I
new.
totally agree.
Wonderful. That's not what I expected, but we're going with that. And this album was definitely not what I was expecting. It took a long time for me to come to terms with that's what it was. But I put it out and I toured it and I stood by it when I released it. And a lot of people, like my buddy Nick, thinks it's my best album. And I don't know if that's a slight dig at me or something, but no, it's full of like super ambitious stuff that I think I was maybe a bit too young and wiry and drunk to really have the executive functioning to pull off properly, or the
But
nuance.
but
Because
and
these are things
yet,
I had in my youth, right?
right. And yet that's the age that you need to be to even attempt something like that. So I feel like it's a weird balance almost.
Yeah, absolutely. Good point.
Uh
Yes. So,
that's
yeah.
pretty interesting. I like hearing that your close friend Nick thinks that it might be your best album and you don't you see all the flaws in it, but it's like that's almost like a lesson in our relationship to art based on if you're the person who made it or if you're the person experiencing it.
Yeah.
Because of course you see all the flaws, right? But then these people have zero idea what the background was, and everything they hear theoretically is correct because it's on the album. That's how I
Yeah.
always think about it.
Yeah. No, you're right. And and I'm cognizant of that my own hangups on it are just that, my own. And that's why, I still stand by it, still sell it at my shows when I have copies or make copies.
Right.
But and I think no, and I do think like it's always been my credo to not give up on your old stuff and your old selves. Like I do know I have friends, I know creators who will just kind of abandon entire past incarnations or past albums,
It's
thinking
like a
like
snake skin.
yeah, I'm shedding it, I'm leaving it behind. I'm not doing it like, or it's like either they're embarrassed on it, and I'm definitely embarrassed some of my old stuff, but I still and not necessarily play them live, but I still stand by the work and have it and say, yep, that was me. And for better or worse, sometimes I think it's nice to put a nice glossy, tight image forward where you just putting out your best, but who wants anyone's best when you can actually be human and twisty and make mistakes and stuff.
I agree
Oh,
completely. I'm sure that a huge in my mind, a huge selling point of view is authenticity, as dirty as that word has become in some weird way, or just abused. Um,
I'm just doing an interview now. Could that wait, please? I'm just talking with a friend about stuff, music and stuff. Um, he's gonna play some video games, but maybe
okay,
after we're talking. That's my son. He plays lots of music too.
nice,
So
nice.
you said something really interesting there, and I got distracted. It was about authenticity.
You're
Yeah,
right.
I don't know. I think authenticity is like a journey. Like it's like the whole
Yeah.
thing about finding authenticity in what I do because it's so it's so askance. What I do is so like everyone does is something unique,
Hmm.
and I think it's like practicing that uniqueness until you find like why you're really doing it and being comfortable in the whole skin of it, uh, and shedding the skin of it and being comfortable in the new skin of it and just being like from looking back, I think that's part of the allure of performance. It's like finding a way to be comfortable up there doing a thing and finding a way to be yourself while putting on while putting on artifice, putting on a show.
Hmm.
Right? It's quite an alluring process.
Well, speaking of that, this I'm sorry. I apologize if you've been asked this. I'm sure you have many times. But where does Max Mannequin Wax Mannequin come from? How did you come up with it?
I think it was a name was talking. Well, I used to call myself Arcade, which I thought was a cool name at the time. And
Yeah.
I still do. Looking back, it's like, that's a nice name. And for some reason, I got hung up at the time, like 1998 or something. I realized there was other bands called Arcade, and I was like, oh shoot, I can't call myself Arcade. There's
Ah,
someone else. So I thought of all these different versions of it that I could use, and then I ended up switching direction. Like I was thinking of like, what could I put with that word, and then it became a trendy word on its own, which was interesting with bands not of that early 2000 ilk that shall
very
not be
much
named.
so.
Yeah, yeah. And then so I went Wax Mannequin. I don't know, a friend. I was in a band, and that concept came up, and I was doing an art piece where I was like um, covered in wax or something with things pointing at me. It was like a performance art thing,
Yeah.
and so that stuck, and it had to do with philosophy and stuff like that. At the time, I can't remember. I just think it's a memorable,
It
memorable.
is.
But I can't remember why, so it's not that memorable.
No, fair enough. I mean, at least maybe that means that the title is memorable, but also vacant enough for people to just like throw on whatever they think about it. But I'm still here. I'm curious about the literal aspect of it. Like you just mentioned it briefly there, but some of the most stunning pictures I've seen of a musician are some of the ones where you're up against a microphone with candles above you, with
Oh yeah.
pouring wax. How does that come into play? When did the candles enter the picture?
It's enticing and repulsive. It's alluring and repulsive. The candles, they're made of wax. And funny enough, the art piece I was talking about, it was before the candle thing, but it was covering a suit, like it was a suit covered in wax,
Hmm.
uh, and it was gold. So it was gold suit. My skin was gold, and I had these metal rods, like labeling my arm and my hand and my face, like a with these symbols on the each end of each rod, like it's a medical textbook or something. And I was sort of standing stationary, and I think that name came from that. But yeah, I do shows with the candles too because it's actually thinking of the best show. One of your questions was what was the best show? It was
That's the
recently.
next question. So you can, yeah, please.
I don't do the candle thing too much, but at certain festivals, certain outdoor shows, I don't want to burn anything down. So, but it's one festival called Tumblestone. It's north of Thunder Bay.
Hmm.
Got this fascinating scene. This group of folks bought a chunk of land probably about 15 years ago now. And over the decades, they've just been building on it, dragging cisterns and tractors and cars onto the property and building, how buildings out of tire and cement and sustainable but ramshackle and I don't know, just living as frugally and kick-assly as they can, as
Hmm.
badassly as they can. And they put on a festival where they got a couple of stages, and one is under this cage and tarp and lights. And the other one they just built. Actually, they built the second stage a few years ago in a big pit. A beautiful spot for a concert. It's just a natural amphitheater with all these rocks, stone kind of almost valley miniature amphitheater. So they built a stage and it lasted 1 year. This is before I played the festival, but they built this stage out of like particle board. So it over the course of the year, it just got waterlogged and rotted. So they had to shut that stage down, and it took
Oh
them about
no.
4 years to learn from the mistake and build it again out of more durable materials. So this year, this summer, August was the first time it was open on this new stage, and it was just an incredible. Wasn't it fun, Saxon? That stage, it was incredible and absolutely packed and with all these weird projections all over the place. And there were performance artists there that set up all these mannequins with candles burning on them, and I thought, well, I better do the candle thing too. So I had like a whole bunch of red candles while I was playing my set. And a bunch of the crew learned the tunes, so we just put on a big rock concert there. It was fun. But the candle
I'm
thing, it's just for special. It's just for rare moments, I think.
sure. I mean, that's maybe a way to keep it special. Uh, but I like the ingenuity with the performance. Does you just sort of you mentioned your son? Does your son perform with you, or was he just there to check out the gig while you were there, or what?
Well, we were there to brought the kids because it's that kind of festival. I
Oh,
mean, it's
cool.
pretty big, but there were lots of kids running around too.
Awesome.
Um, yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, hey, that's a good answer to my best gig question. Would you say that's pretty much it? That was what
It's
you
one
had
of
in
the
mind? Okay.
shows, but that was a very memorable one, and it felt like it was the culmination of that mode, that version of what I do.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Wow. Then that's a good answer. What about your worst gig memory?
First gig would have been in what would this probably be 2002, three? No, it would have been 2004. So my the price would have been out 4 or 5.
Mm-hmm.
So I was touring. I tour out east a lot, touring nonstop, and hit out east in the winter. Get to PEI, Charlottetown. You got to pay at the time $40 to cross that bridge. Play a gig at a second story pub, probably fit about 30 people or something, and get there and load in. And I was running late, of course, because of the storm and because of just being ADHD, scatterbrained. And and so I get on stage. I'm about to start and realize my guitar. I left my guitar in my car, so I go to get it and realize I'd locked my keys in my car, and so I'm
No.
freaking out. And had already gone on. I'm about to start, and so I'm like, what do I do? So I grabbed a rock. I just smashed my car window
Oh.
in the middle of winter in the storm. And so I get my guitar and I rush on stage, play the show, and like people knew what happened, so they're kind of like it's like awkward and laughing. It's kind of I'm kind of joking about it. And after the set, right after the set, I find my keys sitting beside my amp.
Oh.
So fuck. So what do I do? I think I drove. Did I drive all night? Let's just say I drove all night because that's more dramatic. I
Sure.
drove back to Halifax overnight in the storm with this window, like no window in my little rusty 92 Honda Civic.
Like
It's white, brutal,
the entire
cold.
time. Yeah.
So then, and the next day at a buddy's house, what did I do? I got a piece of plywood and I cut a window shape and bolted it to the rear left window of my Civic, and the sight lines were horrible. They're very dangerous, but I drove that plywood Honda Civic for, 8 months or something around Canada until I finally just that car broke down and I replaced it. I never did replace the window. I just got a new car. First gig, one of them.
Yeah, I mean, well, luckily it doesn't. I mean, it sounds like, of course, the performance suffered a bit because of everybody knew the context of it. But for the
It was
most part,
funny.
it sounds
It's a
like,
good story, but also awkward.
yeah,
It's like good story, but it's like I'd rather that story not happen.
not exist. Well, you just alluded to having another one. I mean, do you have another one you want to share?
No, I mean, what? I don't do. Did I allude to another one?
Oh, I just mean, I think you said one of many
Oh,
or
well,
something like
something
that.
similar. Like in Ottawa, I was playing and at the Avant-Garde Bar, which I think is still there.
Yeah, I've played
This
there.
is early when it opened, and you'd have to bring your own sound system. So similarly, scrambling to get the sound system set up at the start of the show, and just as we go, again, dead of winter, they see my car. Everyone starts like laughing because they see my car being towed. But as I'm playing, these windows right behind the
Yep,
stage.
yep.
Tow truck grabs my car and drags it off.
Oh
So I
my
run
God.
upstairs trying to get the tow truck, and I think they impounded the car or something.
Good
So
God.
it's these awkward off-stage moments the calamity of life, like
Yeah.
pouring on stage and informing the show. It always is as makes for entertaining tragedy.
Definitely. Well, I mean, speaking of that, I'm curious just about where else you've traveled that kind of stands out to you in retrospect. I mean, I know you've traveled a lot of places, but so big or small, what's something that stood out to you?
What places? I
Yeah,
don't know.
cities, small cities, even towns or whatever, or venues, maybe that its reputation preceded it. I don't know. Just throwing it out there.
Sure. Well, in Hamburg, there was this place in Germany. There was this place called Eisenschachel, I think it was called, which means I think it translates as dollhouse. I think I have that right.
Okay.
And this was during the Reeperbahn Festival that happened. I think it was Reeperbahn. Yeah. That no, is that Hamburg? I think I have it right. Anyways, the venue is in Hamburg, and you go in, and it's just decked out like a Victorian dollhouse. And the lamps over the tables were actual dolls, and with the dresses, and the lights would shine down from the dresses. And the thing about this venue is all the music has to be extremely quiet. So I'm not good. I get quiet and loud, so I had to kind of bring everything down and do it unplugged and sing in a whisper voice. Uh, it was really like it really oddly amped up the uh, the discomfort factor that I like to ride when I
Yeah.
perform.
Was it your
And it
first
was
time in Germany? Did they respond to it?
yeah, it was a great show. Uh, and I've toured there many times. Well, good about 5 times, and it's been a few years now. But it was a nice introduction to that town, and the fact and this idea of like venues should have be like an alien world. It's awesome in Germany in particular. There's so many venues that have a theme, if not a theme, just a vibe that is so different than you'd expect. Going climbing down a weird winding staircase and finding like a almost like a dungeon like place with metal barrels and I don't know, like neon
Wow.
lights, whatever. Just every club. There's no normal clubs. It's all just something. It has to have like overwhelming personality, which is
Wow.
why I feel that makes sense to me.
It definitely makes sense. Do you mean for the success of a venue or the atmosphere of a venue, or do you just mean it makes sense to you because Europe has been around forever? It's going to have history.
Well, just the purpose of getting out and experiencing art. You want it to,
Yes.
visceral and overwhelm the senses, but also like allow you to be transported or transport yourself to a new conceptual frame. And I think like setting up a room like that, a space like that, a venue like that, uh, allows that to happen. I think I try to do that with my music, and so finding rooms
Hmm.
that have the same uh, credo, I think is exciting.
What are some other rooms, maybe in Canada, that lend itself to that?
I don't know. I mean, I was trying to do something fun like that, and we do shows in my mom's art studio. It's called Awesome Mom because she lets us use her art studio. But it's a really neat space with all kinds of her art, her weird, like pre-steampunk style art.
Oh,
She just did
cool.
big metal boxes and bolts and things in the 80s, and she just has them all uh, in clay,
Oh,
all
wow.
displayed on the walls. And so it's got a cool vibe. I think we'll pick them back up again. We're taking a bit of a hiatus because Nick, I mentioned Nick earlier.
Yeah.
He helps run things at Vertigogo, the sound, and so he's quite busy with that. And I don't want to, you know, I'm quite busy with this. He's quite busy with that. But we'll pick up the concert series again at some point.
Sounds like a cool spot, though.
Lots of great venues. I'm talking like Shackle, but there's lots of things around Canada too. I just can't think of them right now.
Sure. Yeah, no, fair enough. I want to talk a bit more about how you get to where you're speaking about on stage. I mean, how do you put yourself in a place that feels, how do you consistently do that? Putting yourself in a place that, I don't know, feels like you're on the edge of something or gets into the right performance space that you want because it sounds very involved.
I'm not sure. I like to write the songs the best I can, and I want them to be as interesting as they can be for me. And I like to perform them in a way that I think is viscerally that if I walked in and caught if I hadn't done music in my life and I walked in and heard my music, I would have wanted to. to think, yes, that's something I could do. So that's
Mm.
why I write songs. And I also write songs and perform thinking about like, I'm not saying it's like entirely, you know, selfish. I mean, I like thinking about how others will listen to the music when I play it. So I do, there's a sort of an imaginary audience in my brain when I write songs. And it never quite lines up with how people actually respond to the music. But I think there's an audience of me is listening to the songs when I write it. And there's an audience of yous and everyone else when I play the songs. Therein creates the stuff of good with the interplay of uh, song, thing, form, and force, song and listener. On stage, yeah, I'm just going for good feels.
Yeah.
I like to rock out. I used to write really complex music on the guitars, and over the years, it's become a bit more immediate, a bit more punk, a bit
Hmm.
more immediately communicative because that's also fun to do.
Well, I was going to kind of get to that. Not specifically the fact that now it's more punk, but just in general the way you write. But maybe a more interesting question is how the way you write has changed based on that sound change. I mean, what does writing a song look like right now as Wax Mannequin?
I don't know. It's the same as probably ever. I just get an idea in my head, like a melody or a turn of phrase, and then if I have the wherewithal, I record it, write it down, and chip away at the words until they click, or until I say, "Oh shit, we have to record these," so they're done, I guess. Um, yeah. So
How would you
and then
explain the wherewithal?
it makes it better because I figure out, like I said, I just go back and revise the music or the words, or just change the melody slightly to make it a bit more, make it land the way I want it to land.
I'm curious what strikes you as worth continuing to follow as a creative idea. I know we're getting into maybe hard to articulate things, but uh, I guess I just mean, do you ever have unfinished songs and you leave them unfinished because you go, I just don't know what I was trying to do here. I don't see a way out of it.
Oh, who doesn't? Well, I mean, there's lots of ideas on. I don't know how you record. Do you record a little voice recorder, or what do you do? Where do you get your ideas down, Alex? It's like,
Yeah, voice memo, like kind of that equivalent.
yeah, yeah, that's it. That's it. Just a little voice recorder now, which I kind of miss my old tiny little cassette recorder, and I have a bunch of those in the garage, and I'd like to see if they still work and if any of those songs are still good.
That would be
Um,
cool.
yeah, found one of those little cassette recorders. I could probably just get one on Amazon or something. You can find old technology surprisingly easy. Sometimes it's expensive, but I
Yeah.
got to get one of those and go through all those old tapes, see if any of those hold up, some of those ideas. But it's the same. It's the same thing now. I just get little ideas and record them, and some of them get finished. Some of them don't.
Yeah, I guess it's just the nature of what holds your interest enough, and you decide to go back and look at or not the next day, even, I guess. Uh, do you mostly write on guitar?
Um, I think so. I mostly write in my head. Like I just get an idea in my head, and then I kind of hear what it will sound like, in different finished forms, and then I end up playing it a guitar, and it comes out different. I really enjoy. I'm doing a lot of band stuff these days, but I really enjoy. I got a new one man band show, but like that's not a show, but it's a machine. It's my Polyant tracker. So I track. It's like a device that replicates those old tracking softwares for Commodore Amiga, or like the early PC that I started writing music on even before I played guitar. Just would use tracking software and samples and looping them. So it
Oh,
sounds really 8-bit, 16-bit, um, and I like to keep it really brutalist like that. Just get the idea across with as few you know maximally impactful sounds, and then play the guitar and sing over top. I find it's a good recipe for just conveying the gist of what I'm going for, and letting the person listening to it, you know, use lots of room for their imagination too, which I think is really important. Leaving room for the person listening to the music to imagine what's implied in there that maybe you didn't lay down recording wise, or even in words you
Yeah,
can imply without saying them. Yeah,
the listener almost finishes the sentence that you implied the ending, and they are on the same wavelength. It's that kind of.
absolutely.
Uh, I love that you said you look at it in a brutalist way. That's so interesting. I have not heard that before, but and yet I completely understand what you mean. With
It's
that
not
said,
even minimalism. It's just I don't know if I'm understanding that, if I'm using the term correctly, but I think it's like, yeah, maybe minimalism, but to maximal effect. It's
no,
like
no, I yeah,
for ambitious stuff, it's ambitious, but using the fewest parts possible to imply something just catastrophically big.
right. No, I'm with you. I think it conveys that well. What I was going to ask was, can you name some other people who do that? Other artists? They don't need to be Canadian.
I don't know. I'll have to get back to you on that.
Sure, fair
Probably.
enough.
It's, I just have to. Yeah, I'm not good at names, so it'd have to come to mind, and I'd have to dig around for a bit. But
No, no worries. Well, hopefully you're good at names of your songs because the next question I'm asking is what do you think is the best song you've publicly released?
so is this the order? We have to play the best one first and then the worst one?
That's how I
Or
usually end it because it flows into when I play your choice for worst song at the end of
okay.
the episode. Yeah.
So fair enough. I mean, that's your format. I'm not going to question it. It's just I always like to leave on the best, because then you're like, ah, so you're going to get the best song and then the worst song.
You can spin the worst into some sort of
Oh,
positive
that,
message.
that guy's music, it's terrible. No, but that's fine. That's good. I love it. It's great. So the best song I'm going to go with what's new because I'm not sick of it yet. So probably my
Mhm.
best song would be appropriately titled "Not the Worst It Gets." Uh, so my new, and I didn't pick that one just because of the name of the podcast and all
Yeah.
that. I think it's a good song.
So yeah, why? Why other than you're not sick of it yet, which is a good barometer, of course.
I think it's simple. It implies a lot. The words, it's a lot of words, but I think they all have a purpose. And I think I wrote it fairly well. They still, I'll probably change some words in a few years, but I like what I was going for, and I think I was going for something. And I think I got there. Um, yeah, and I think it's got a vibe.
How did you record it?
I was during the pandemic. A bunch of people helped. I don't know, like back and forth. So I recorded the vocals here in Guelph, and then the piano. My friend James Chappell, does music for TV shows and stuff in LA, and then he did the piano part. Great
Cool.
guy. And then Corwin Fox, when we flew out west and finished it up together in a lull during the pandemic. So it kind of is wrote mostly before the pandemic, but it's very much you'll hear it. It feels like that feeling of that, being stuck on something and it's about depression and coming out of depression and stuff. So it's kind of appropriate.
Yeah, absolutely. I like hearing about that. So are you in Guelph right now?
No, I'm in Hamilton.
Oh, but
Or
you said here in Guelph at one point
here as in like in Ontario,
in
as close
Ontario.
region.
Oh God, yeah, I'm kind of a sucker for Guelph. I've never lived there, but every time I visit, I think it's like the greatest place. So I was going to ask about that.
Recording at Copper Sound in Guelph, and then the Hidden Well in Vancouver, and then my buddy Edwin Burnett's what's his moniker? He's using uh, picnics, roadside picnics, roadside.
Okay.
That's his jam. But also he's got lots of monikers he throws, and he's one of my best friends and collaborators. Brilliant guy. Yeah, and I'm here, there, and everywhere. My friend Evelyn, Charlotte, Joe. Actually, Evelyn doesn't play on that one. They play all over the record. Evelyn plays all over the record, but doesn't play on that song. I've actually did bass on that, but we ended up using a synth bass with one of those, not even a synth bass, one of those big organ pianos that have bass pedals.
Hmm.
I just played the notes brutally.
Brutally. What makes you mentioned sorry, I forgot their name, but you mentioned two people just now. At the previous one, you said is a close friend and collaborator.
Edwin David Burnett. Edwin
So,
Burnett.
what makes him such a good collaborator?
Just we like just like have a similar sense of nostalgia and sense of weird.
So you creatively lead towards the same choices.
Yeah, kind of speak each other's language,
Yeah,
get each other's, but like kind of obsess over somewhat different things, but get excited about each other's obsessions. Like I can see why he gets really into the things he gets really into. And I like to think he probably uh, sees the same thing in what I do. So good friends.
that's cool. I feel like that's a big compliment to each other. That's nice. How long have you known each other?
Edwin, Edwin recorded my first record, so and that's right around the time we met, so 1999.
Okay, yeah. So a while then. Uh, okay. Well, we're at the last question, which is, what do you think is your worst song that you've publicly released?
Again, it's hard to choose. There's been so many, but I'm gonna go with just the album I was mentioning, Orchard and Ire. You know, I'm gonna go with a song off that called "Robots, Master and Lady."
Okay.
This sprawling, uh, compelling train wreck that I think is noble, if only to note that you know to never play it again. It's one of those tunes some people really jam on, and I was like, okay, great. And it's one of those tunes I imagine myself bringing it back. And with that whole album, there's a whole thing I can still hit now because Red Brain actually is very similar vibe to what I wanted to get with Orchard and Ire. So my new album, I feel like after all these years, I could finally get close to what I was going for back then in 2007. And so I'm excited to keep doing this because I think just the more I do it, the closer and closer I'm going to get to this thing I'm going for. So and the Red Baron is if it's kind of what I wanted in 2007. Very different album, very different songs, but it takes you on the similar journey of extremes, and so you hear that journey of extremes within this song. It's got some insufferable moments and certainly some compelling moments, and the drumming is what's the word? Just like it's nonstop. It's irrepressible. Aiden Campbell on drums. He's a real genius, but just a complex drummer.
What makes it insufferable in parts to you?
I don't know. You know what? It's saying too much. I don't want to spoil the surprise.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good attitude to have, I suppose. Okay, well, how about this? What were you seeking to do? Like, what were you attempting at? And it didn't become that. You said it's sprawling, compelling in some ways. So clearly there are some moments of success.
Yeah. No, I think it's a complete success, just not the success I had expected.
Uh, do you want to expand on that?
I can't really without giving away the surprise.
Okay, I see. Okay, well, fair enough then. You've at least promoted the song. I'm gonna play it soon, so that's a good way of doing it. Uh, is there anything that you want to promote now? Are there any shows or
Um,
that kind of thing? This will
well, I
be
don't know.
this will be in early January.
Yeah, I'm gonna be trying to. I'm always doing things. Taking a little break in January. I'm always things are always coming up, but I'm going out west for the cold snap. There's two that I confuse: cold snap and frostbite. Frostbite's a different one.
Hmm.
Frostbite's like they're up in the like Yukon or something, or the cold snap is near Prince George, BC, and that's the one I'm doing. I think I got it right. And
Okay.
then in December, in like a week, 2 weeks, I'm going to Williams, no, Fort, one of those, Prince William. I think that's where it is. So doing a couple of weird things out in BC randomly in the next month, but not too much locally, like just trying to pare that down
Yeah.
because I find I just get excited and do too much stuff around here. And kind of than like I get, I've played music around here, but I also like not playing music.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I get it. Okay, well, I get it a lot. Trust me. I have a love-hate relationship with playing music live. I like making music, but the live thing, I'm not sure. Um, what I do at the end of every podcast is have the guest, if they want to, just restate who their name is or the artist name, so Wax Mannequin, and the name of the worst song choice.
Sure. This I'm Wax Mannequin, and this is the choice. My choice, tonight's choice for worst song of mine is Robots, Master and Lady.
With a pencil, there is a picture of lady. From a lady comes the sing-song of instruments. An instrument in the market is a lady, it's people. And the people are learning to see. With a stencil, there is a picture of engine. From an engineer, the ring of the implements. An implement in the temple, it's a people, it's empire. And the empire is teaching to see. You won't remember, but December wasn't very long. Then his winter wind ended over before it begun. Breath begun just when you're sung. Robots take the best of us. Robots test our breath for lust. Robots praise the manly touch. They shape our marble bust. Robots break the least of us. Robots take our teeth and such. Robots rip the rest of us, every single one. Point a finger at an example of danger. From a danger comes the fear raised by increments. An increment from the empire comes a master of trumpets. And the trumpets are yearning to see. Boy, you got the answer, but the cancer caught you just in time. And her summer sun blended all of its seed in your spine. As the spines inspire, you'll find robots take the best of us. Robots test our breath with lust. Robots praise the manly touch. They shape our marble bust. Robots break the least of us. Robots cake their teeth with rust. Robots rip the rest of us, every fucking one. Every single one. Na 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 one. Na 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 one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Something we might not want to think about. It is a thing might not quite want to be seen. They bring it bad, it gives us bad things to fight about. And when we win, we'll hold it tight with our skin. robots. This is animals.